Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. May, moves that Bill C-380, an act to amend the Fish Inspection Act and the Fisheries Act, importation of shark fins, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Fisheries and Oceans. Debate. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured to begin debate on second reading of Bill C-380, which would amend the Fish Inspection Act by legally banning the importation of shark fins not attached to the rest of the shark to Canada. It would also amend the Fisheries Act by enshrining in legislation Canada's current prohibition on shark finning. My bill seeks to address a conservation crisis that is happening in oceans around the world. Right now, we are witnessing the rapid decline of sharks due to the demand for their fins. Up to 73 million sharks are being killed each year, primarily for their fins. According to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, over 1/3 of all shark species are currently threatened with extinction. Sharks are being finned. The practice of finning is brutal. If I could show you an image of a shark getting its fins cut off before being dumped back in the ocean, you would be horrified. Mr. Speaker, let me describe how sharks are caught and killed. Long lines, often 85 kilometers long or so, are placed in the ocean. These lines have multiple hooks which indiscriminately catch sea creatures like sharks, turtles, swordfish, tuna, and other big fish. Sharks are hauled into the fishing vessel. Some are dead, many are still alive. Once they are in the boat, they cut off the fins and dump the body of the shark back into the ocean, left to die a slow and painful death as they sink helplessly to the bottom of the ocean. This is not only unethical, but it is a terribly wasteful practice. Scientists estimate that in just a few short decades, some regional shark populations will have declined by over 95%. Experts also predict that if current trends continue, up to 20 shark species could become functionally extinct by 2017. 2017, Mr. Speaker, that's only 4 years from now. Sharks have long life cycles and are slow to reproduce. They predate dinosaurs. They are apex predators and play a critical role in the maintaining of the health and balance of our ocean ecosystems. For these reasons, sharks cannot sustain the intense fishing practices they are under. Humans are causing irrevocable harm to our marine ecosystems by continuing to fish sharks into extinction. The consequences of not addressing this problem will significantly and permanently harm the health of our ocean. As parliamentarians, we must consider how Canada can play a positive role in this global conservation crisis. I propose that Canada adopt an importation ban of shark fins, as it is a practical and effective way for Canada to help curtail the illegal global shark fin trade. The primary reason for the rapid decline of sharks in our oceans is the demand for their fins. Unfortunately, shark finning has become a prevalent practice in various parts of the world. While some countries have banned shark finning, global demand for shark fin continues to drive illegal, unreported, and unregulated shark fisheries. On average, a shark fin sells for $400 per kilogram, while shark meat is worth about 50 cents a kilogram. Consequently, a highly profitable underground shark fin market has emerged, which exploits threatened and endangered shark species to maximize profits. Organized crime is very much involved with the sale of shark fin around the world. Canada imports, on average, just over 100 tons of shark fin a year. Some consumers of shark fin soup falsely believe only shark fins from properly regulated and well-managed fisheries are allowed into the country. This is simply not the case. The fact is, there is no quick and easy way to verify whether imported shark fins came from a sustainable or humane shark fishery. In fact, most do not. It has been proven that fins of threatened and endangered sharks are being sold in Canada today. Last year, CTV News and the Vancouver Animal Defense League purchased dried shark fins from various shops in the Lower Mainland, and they had the DNA tested by a lab at the University of Guelph. Of 59 samples tested, it was determined that 76% of those fins came from sharks listed as threatened or endangered by the IUCN. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. In fact, 10% of samples came from scalloped hammerhead sharks, which the IUCN lists as endangered. These hammerheads are also listed under Appendix 3 of CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This is the international treaty intended to protect species from overexploitation. As a member of CITES, Canada is asked to assist in controlling the trade of these sharks, but it is clear that we are not living up to our commitment. Despite being a signatory to CITES, Canada is contributing to the global trade of illegal shark fins by continuing to import fins indiscriminately. This is a black eye on our reputation as a world leader in ocean conservation and stewardship. It is also important to note that existing international regulations and protocols have not demonstrated that they can swiftly respond to the urgent threats facing overexploited shark populations. Proposals to strengthen finning bans and add more shark species to endangered species lists are failing to gain consensus due to member countries' competing self-interests. Even Canada has been criticized for being the only country to oppose listing porbeagle sharks as endangered at the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas. It is clear that current regulations are not enough to protect sharks from being fished to extinction for their fins. The best way to put an end to this horrific practice is to legislate a ban on the importation of shark fins to Canada. By adopting an import ban, Canada would be joining a worldwide conservation movement to protect sharks. Other countries with shark fin bans include the Bahamas, Chile, Ecuador, Fiji, and Guam, as well as the U.S. states of California, Hawaii, Illinois, Oregon, and Washington. Across Asia, there are numerous examples of the growing movement to protect sharks. The Chinese government recently announced it would stop serving shark fin soup at official banquets. Prestigious restaurants and hotels across Asia have removed shark fin soup from their menus, including major high-end hotel chains like Peninsula, Shangri-La, the Marriott, and the Sheraton. Cathay Pacific Airlines halted its role in the shark fin trade when it decided to stop transporting shipments of shark fin and other shark products. In Canada, efforts to protect sharks have gained significant momentum over the past few years. A growing number of Chinese restaurants have taken shark fin soup off their menus, including Floda Seafood Restaurant in Vancouver, one of the largest Chinese restaurants in the country. However, some restaurant owners, while recognizing the harmful impact of shark fin soup, fear that by taking it off their menu, customers may take their business elsewhere. This is the case for Veronica Kwan, owner of Cam Fung Chinese Restaurant in Brossard, Quebec. She wrote to members of Parliament urging them to support my bill, C-380. She writes, quote, "A ban on the import of shark fins to Canada would level the playing field for business owners such as myself who want to do what is ethically and ecologically responsible while still remaining commercially competitive," unquote. Increased awareness and action to protect sharks is in due part to grassroots organizations like Shark Truth, which is fostering change through positive campaigns like their Happy Hearts Love Sharks wedding contest, which encourages couples to go fin-free at wedding banquets. Organizations like the Humane Society International Canada, Wild Aid Canada, and United Conservationists have raised national awareness of the urgent need to protect sharks. I must also highlight the work of Canadian filmmaker Rob Stewart, whose 2007 film Shark Water opened the eyes of millions to the exploitation of sharks through finning. and the rampant corruption present in the shark fin trade. Through stunning original footage, Stewart documents how even sharks in marine reserves are targeted by poachers. His film has reached large audiences in Canada and around the world, and is in part responsible for increased awareness of the realities of shark finning. Mr. Speaker, numerous municipalities in Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia have responded to the growing public awareness of threats to sharks by adopting bans on shark fin. And many more cities across the country are considering similar bans. Last year, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities passed a near-unanimous resolution calling on the federal government to ban the import of shark fins to Canada. Cities across Canada are taking action to protect sharks, and they are calling on the federal government to do the same. Before drafting my bill, I consulted with Chinese Canadian business associations, restaurant owners and individuals, as well as academics, elected representatives from all levels of government, environmental organizations, and the wider public. I had polling done in Chinese, in English, Chinese in Cantonese and Mandarin in British Columbia, which found 76% of Chinese-speaking respondents and over 83% of English-speaking respondents support a federal import ban of shark fins. It is clear that there is widespread support for the federal government to ban the importation of shark fins to Canada. Tens of thousands of Canadians have signed petitions and written to their members of parliament urging them to support Bill C-380. And I know many members have received emails because I've heard from them that they have received calls and emails, especially in the last few weeks. And I want to thank Canadians for writing in and contacting their members to let them know how important this issue is. I have introduced many of these petitions in the House of Commons, and I can tell my colleagues that they come from all corners of this country. Children are particularly passionate about shark conservation, and I have been amazed by their enthusiasm to create change. In my riding, a class of grade 1 students and their teacher from Moody Elementary made a great presentation to Port Moody City Council in support of a municipal ban of shark fin. They researched the environmental impact of shark finning, and they were excited to share their learning with Council and the public. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, it was quite moving when these young people came into Council chambers with their very organized messages and their signs, and they gave a very compelling presentation. And I have never seen members of a council react so quickly, and they wanted to pass a ban that night. It did take a while in Port Moody, but they became the first municipality in British Columbia to pass a ban on shark fin, and that caused a chain reaction of other municipalities in British Columbia, now the province that has the most municipal bans in Canada. Mr. Speaker, the facts before us today make the case that Canada must take immediate action to address the crisis of rapidly declining shark populations. We are facing the likely extinction of shark species around the globe, largely due to the demand for their highly valued fins. Canada must stop indiscriminately importing fins from endangered and threatened sharks. We must put an end to our role in the illegal global shark fin trade. I ask all members to support Bill C-380 at second reading so it can be studied further at committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his speech. And I just wanted to ask him a little bit more about the scope of or the principle behind his bill. He talks about a conservation crisis and uses words like rapidly declining shark populations, pending extinction, and so on. And though there are many shark populations that are quite healthy as well. But if this is the case, if this is the motivation behind this bill, is he suggesting for other species that might be facing conservation crises, let's say, for example, tuna, that the same approach should be taken, that Canada should, for example, ban the importation of tuna? And would he then suggest that every other country should follow Canada's example and not allow the importation of tuna, for example, which could negatively affect both our own fishers who fish for tuna, as well as those who fish for shark within Canadian waters? Wonder if he's thought that through as well.
The honourable member for New Westminster Coquitlam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the Parliamentary Secretary for raising that issue. The issue of tuna and the protection and conservation of tuna is critically important, and I hope that Canada will take action. Of course, my bill is focused specifically on shark conservation. Sharks are being targeted for their fins, not their meat. The meat is, as I mentioned in my speech, about 50 cents a pound. The fins, on the other hand, are valued up to $400 a pound or a kilogram. So it is the shark fin is what is being targeted here, and as some scientists have predicted, we could lose sharks as some species as early as 2017. In other words, in this decade, if we don't take dramatic action. Canada can become a global leader by becoming the first country to ban the importation of sharks and really focusing on the shark fin as the source of the issue that will help conserve our shark populations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. A number of my constituents are Chinese Canadians, and they've approached me with concerns about this bill. Like the honourable member, they're dead opposed to finning, and they're totally opposed to the importation of sharks that are an endangered species. So they accept those principles. But at the same time, they view an outright ban of shark fin soup as an attack on the Chinese culture. And so I think there is a way around this, and my question to the honourable member is, would he entertain amendments to his bill that would allow the use of shark fin soup in Canada, but only on condition that it is not shark that has been subject to finning, it is not sharks that are endangered, and the importation would be limited to countries that obey international law in these matters?
The honourable member for New Westminster Coquitlam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. There are three issues that I could respond to. In terms of consultation, I consulted with a wide variety of stakeholders, including Chinese business associations, and their concern is they want a level playing field. They want to see an importation ban. They feel that that is the fair way to go. Now, I want to clarify that this bill does not impact what is sold in the country. This bill focuses on coming into the country, so it actually doesn't address the issue that the honourable member was talking about in terms of a ban of shark fin soup in provinces. That is more provincial jurisdiction in terms of the sale and trade. But the importation of shark fins, which is really getting at the illegal finning trade, is what this bill focuses on, and it will curtail that important demand that is existing in the world right now, which Canada plays a part of. In terms of addressing issues at committee stage and entertaining amendments, I think that is what committee is for. There'll be a healthy discussion and debate. I hope that all honourable members will consider supporting this bill at second reading so that we can get this bill forwarded to committee for a further discussion. And perhaps there are amendments that might need to be made, but that's where at committee that discussion will be had. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Je suis heureux d'avoir l'occasion.
I am pleased to have the opportunity to respond to Bill C-380. it goes without saying that this is a very difficult matter.
Committed to addressing the serious problem of shark finning. We are taking action on a number of fronts to end this deplorable activity, and it is very important to note that shark finning has been banned in Canada since the mid-1990s. L'interdiction s'applique aux eaux canadiennes.
This ban applies to Canadian waters and also to vessels with a Canadian license that fish outside our territorial waters. In fact, Canada is one of the first country to have put in place a national action plan for the conservation and management of sharks.
Regional fisheries management organizations, such as the Northwest Atlantic Fisheries Organization, to ensure strong management and enforcement practices globally is the most effective way to prevent unsustainable practices such as finning. We take seriously our legal obligation to prevent the import of products from shark species that are currently listed as endangered and protected under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Ces espèces sont le grand...
These species are the great white shark, the whale shark, and the basking shark. I will speak more specifically about the provisions of the bill that deal with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's food safety regime and the proposed amendments to the Fish Inspection Act.
Let me begin by reiterating our government's unwavering commitment to food safety and the role of the CFIA. The CFIA is already exploring what can be done on the importation of shark fins. Shark products for human consumption fall under regulations that address the importation of fish and seafood products. These regulations set standards for quality, safety, and identification and are enforced by the CFIA. La CIA s'occupe strictement.
The CFI strictly oversees food safety and quality as well as consumer protection. Furthermore, all Canadian fishing license holders for sharks or bycatches of sharks must respect the conditions that prohibit them from shark finning. All vessels licensed for shark fishing in Canada are monitored 100% of the time. Non-compliance with license conditions is a violation of the Fisheries Act, which is enforced by Fisheries and Oceans Canada.
Are aware, Bill C-380 proposes to prohibit the importation of shark fins unless authorized by a permit issued by the Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. The expertise and jurisdiction to make these determinations lies with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and therefore renders the licensing scheme in this bill through the Fish Inspection Act completely unfeasible. Je vais d'abord analyser cette...
I will begin by analyzing this provision from the perspective of the current Fish Inspection Act of Canada and then from that of the new Food Safety Act. The purpose of the Fish Inspection Act is to regulate food and seafood quality and safety, especially those fish and seafood that are destined for human consumption. The import prohibition under this regulation applies only to fish products which pose a risk to human health. Yet there is no evidence that shark fins do pose a risk to human health.
Importation of shark fins for any reason other than food safety, we would leave Canada vulnerable for a trade challenge at the WTO. The proposed ban on shark fin imports does not prohibit the legal production and sale of domestic shark fins in Canada, but prohibits imports of shark fins that were legally produced in other countries. It is a protectionist policy, one that is not good for trade. This could pave the way for other countries to impose protectionist policies on Canadian imports with little to no basis. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, Canada is currently challenging the EU at the WTO for a similar type of ban on Canadian seal products. Les recommandations du projet de loi.
The recommendations contained in Bill C-380 exceed the scope of current regulations and the new legislation that will be upcoming on food safety.
Canada's Fish Inspection Act will be repealed as our government's Safe Food for Canadians Act comes into force. The Safe Food for Canadians Act, which received royal assent this past fall, strengthens and modernizes our food safety system to make sure it continues to provide for safe food for Canadians. Elle fournira les outils
It will provide the tools needed so that Canadians can continue to trust the CFIA to protect their food.
L'objectif principal de
The main objective of the new legislative provisions on food safety is to strengthen our ability to protect Canada's food supply and the health of Canadians. The Safe Food for Canadians Act will help us achieve this by grouping the provisions of certain acts and regulations, such as those in the Fish Inspection Act, to allow for more regulatory and statutory consistency of food products.
continue to support responsible, legal shark harvesters and crack down on those who break the rules. And I appreciate my honourable colleagues' full attention on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Cardigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to rise today to speak on Bill C-380, an act to amend the Fisheries Inspection Act and the Fisheries Act, sponsored by my honourable colleague, the member from New Westminster, Coquitlam. This bill, BC-380, is an important bill with very important implications. The bill would enshrine in legislation Canada's ban against shark finning. Shark finning is a cruel and inhumane practice which I believe the Government of Canada should be doing whatever it can to end on a global basis. Besides cruelty, shark finning is an awful practice for a number of reasons. Shark fin fisheries are associated with excessive mortality as fishing effort is not limited by hold space. Finning threatens the sustainability of fisheries. Finning hinders the collection of catch data needed to monitor population trends and set sustainable catch limits. Overfishing, which may be driven by finning, is widely recognized as the greatest cause for the extinction risk to sharks. The removal of the large number of top predators may destabilize marine ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, it was the Liberal government that banned shark finning in Canada back in 1994, and it has been enacted through fisheries regulations and management plans since then. Bill C-380 would replace it directly under the Fisheries Act. This would be a good step to take and would send a clear and renewed message that Canada would never accept this practice in any shape or form. It would be a strong symbolic gesture of Canada's stance on the issue. The stocks of some shark species are in bad shape, and some of this problem can be traced to the practice of shark finning by those countries which allow it. Canada should be doing its part to take a strong stand and take effective action against others who participate in this awful practice. It is the other part of the bill that I do partially support, but which gives me some hesitation, Mr. Speaker. This part of the bill would add to the Fisheries Implication Act a prohibition against importing shark fins that are not attached to the rest of the shark carcass. This would allow the minister to, also allow the minister to import fins that are used for scientific research related to the survival of shark species. In 2011, Canada imported over 100 tons of shark fin, worth $6.3 million. None of these fins were attached to the rest of the carcass at the time of import. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill would essentially ban all shark fin imports from Canadian soil without making a difference whether they were obtained through shark finning or through sustainable and proper fishing methods. About half of the 2011 shark fin imports came from other countries which already banned the practice of shark finning. I just wonder what message this would send if we completely ban the import of shark fin and do not note the difference between the countries that ban the practice of shark finning and those that still allow it to take place.
Good point.
I believe that we must make a distinction and send a clear message to those countries which still allow the practice to take place in their shark fishery. I also wonder if we do not make a distinction between which species the fins come from. Are they the endangered species, or are they the species where the stock is in good shape? These are important points to make, Mr. Speaker. The bill as it's currently written would make a federal ban on imports of food that is still seen as very valuable and very important by many in the Chinese-Canadian community. I do not believe that a complete federal ban on all shark fin imports to this country, whether or not they were obtained, I do not believe that a complete federal ban on all shark fin imports to this country, whether or not they're obtained through shark finning or through the proper or sustainable fishing methods, would send a very good message to those countries. I believe that we should have the right to choose to eat a culturally imported food as long as it's obtained properly from species which are not threatened and the fishery or the shark did not be fished cruelly. Mr. Speaker, it is dependent upon us as federal legislators to be very sensitive of the cultural and identity concerns of Canada's many different communities, while still taking a strong stance against the very cruel and inhumane practice of shark finning, which is still practiced in countries around the world. Not all shark fisheries involve species which are threatened, and not all shark fishers participate in the cruel practice of shark finning. I would just like to note that I believe this is an important point also to make. We must not put countries which do a good job of regulating their shark fishery to prevent overfishing and cruelty in the same boat as countries which foment overfishing and shark finning. If we punish only those countries which allow these practices by banning their imports from them, we will send them a very clear message that this is unacceptable. Perhaps this will be an incentive for those countries to change the way they handle their shark fishery, and perhaps other countries will follow suit. But if we also punish those countries that are doing a good job in regulating their shark fishery and preventing cruelty, what message are we sending to them? That it makes no difference whether you regulate your fisheries or prevent cruelty? That we will treat you the same as other countries with unregulated fisheries who allow overfishing to destroy shark stocks and who allow the cruel practice of shark finning? I certainly, Mr. Speaker, do not feel that this is a prudent thing to do. I would like to explore this bill further in committee and see whether we can make a distinction between where the shark fin comes from and what species it is from. Some shark fins may very well come from countries which ban shark finning already. The shark may be of a species which is fished sustainably in an appropriate manner by countries which ban shark finning. The fin may also be separated from the carcass properly once the shark has been landed and brought to the shore of that country. Other shark fins may come from countries which allow shark finning or from threatened species of shark. These fins are the fins we should focus on banning from importation to Canada. Mr. Speaker, if this bill passes as it's currently written, it would make Canada the first country in the world to ban shark fin imports. It is a very important bill, and we must look at it closely. I agree completely that shark finning is an awful practice, and we need to do more to pressure those countries which engage in this practice to stop it from happening. We must do what we can to make sure that shark fin comes into Canada from a legally harvest. I come from an area of this country where fisheries is very important. Having sustainable fishery is something that is truly important to myself and to the many people involved in the fisheries in my riding of Cardigan and in the province of Prince Edward Island. We all agree that a sustainable fishery is something we must have, but the people involved in the fishery must be able to make a living if they are fishing the proper species of shark and that they're using the proper methods. We should not punish those people involved in sustainable shark fishery. We cannot lump them in together with people who fish critically endangered species and those who practice shark finning. I believe if we look at this bill at committee and more closely and are able to make some amendments, that it would serve this purpose. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well said.
Reprise du débat, l'honorable.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Brossard-La Prairie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to begin my speech on this, the Year of the Snake, by wishing you and my colleagues
J'aimerais d'abord aussi
a happy new year. I'd also like to thank my colleague for New Westminster, Coquitlam, who put forward this bill. This is a bill that's very dear to my heart. I thank him for all the work he did in the field, for getting people together on this bill. I think we should all support it. To explain a little why I support this bill to such an extent and why it's so important to me, is that I am an underwater diving instructor. I don't have time for that anymore since I've been a member, but when I did these courses, I talked about the importance of maintaining, conserving our environment, especially the marine flora. One of the things I used to do was show a video called Shark Water, produced by a Canadian who won prizes worldwide, 31 awards if I'm not mistaken, worldwide. This is a documentary that is so beautiful and so simple. It explains the problem with regard to shark fins and the impact this has on the shark population, as well as the reason why we use those fins. I have to talk about my origins as well. As you know, I'm of Asian origin. I grew up eating shark fin soup. However, there are changes, and new generations, as I will explain a little later, support this bill. There is a change going on. It's important for us as parliamentarians to carry forth such changes.
after a dive and you're on the boat and you actually have the chance to see a real live shark, which is something really, it's truly a pleasure. Everyone on the boat will have a smile, will talk about how amazing that creature is, how important it is, and really how privileged we are to actually swim with them. And, you know, I know a lot of people have seen Jaws, but that's Hollywood. If you look at what's happening in real life, it's a beautiful creature, and it's a very important creature to keep our ecosystem in equilibrium. One thing that's really important about also shark fin is because there's tremendous amount of sharks being killed just for their fin. And I repeat, just for their fins. People are not eating shark steak. My colleague has mentioned the price of fins versus the price of the meat. And the reason why we don't eat shark meat is because they're the apex predator, and there's so much mercury in it. And basically, I don't hear a lot of people eating steak shark. So really, the real problem is the fact that we're killing sharks. Often we're killing them alive, or we're finning them alive, just for their fins. And why are we doing it for their fins? Is because there's something in my community, in the Chinese and Vietnamese community, where it's very important to have, to treat your guests well. And one way of doing it is, at a wedding, for instance, is to bring them shark fin soup. But the reality of it, if you taste the soup, it might taste really good, but it's not because of the shark fins. It's because what's in it. And I know there's a lot of chefs we're talking about pork broth or chicken broth, so that's what brings the taste to it. Shark fin has no taste. It's a cartilage. It brings no nutritional value to it. It's basically just a question of prestige. And I think that's why kids these days, and I know my colleague from New Westminster, Coquitlam, has been approaching a lot of kids and people from different communities, and it's really important for them because there's a difference between, the value and the fact that you want to look good for the banquet for people, but the fact is, it's not necessary to do that. And even the Chinese government has realized that. And a lot of hotels, a lot of chains have started doing that. And if you look at it,
if you really look at it, it's not just cultural. I've heard this from the government, that the Chinese or Asian culture is being attacked here. That's not true. I think that cultures evolve, traditions evolve. I'm of a new generation. I discuss this with a lot of people. We have to keep our roots, but we have to evolve as well. And that's why I'm asking my colleagues to support this bill, because it's very important for future generations. When you know that a tradition is harmful, or we sometimes cite the example of ivory and endangered, imperiled species. I think that came to an end, and I think we can do the same thing for shark fins. I heard colleagues talk about truly attacking certain types of fins. If we look at a report from CTV in 2012, out of 59 shark fins, they collected DNA samples. 76% came from threatened species. So even though the idea already exists that you can't just cut off the fins, in practice, it's really impossible for inspectors to verify all the fins. If my colleagues had watched shark water, they would know that there is a huge black market that is growing. And this is completely illegal. So how can we have these checks done? Where are the fins from? Are they from a country that does not ban this practice? As we say, they often cut off the fins with the animal still alive. How do we know whether it comes from the black market or not? That's the problem, and that's what the bill is trying to address. My Liberal colleague mentioned that he would like to bring this before committee for examination, and we agree completely. Contrary to another party, we are open to amendments and discussion. I think the point is there's a problem. The problem is that sharks are being attacked. This causes an environmental imbalance for the marine flora, and it's not necessary. As my colleague mentioned, tuna, for example, should the principle be applied to tuna as well? Well, this is a practice where you kill a shark, cut off the fins to sell it in one dish, which unfortunately doesn't really bring much to the dish except the cost and prestige. Now, there's already an imbalance in the environment when it comes to the protection of marine flora. If my colleague wants to protect fish, he would know that the fact that the shark is taken out of the food chain leads to an imbalance in the aquatic milieu or habitat. If we just talk about protection, and when I do scuba diving, I'm very affected by this, seeing a shark and having future generations able to see a shark is important. If we don't follow the recommendations, in 2009, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature reported that 1/3 of shark species were threatened with extinction because of this trade. So we see the problem. 73 million sharks killed every year. That is a phenomenal number. If we do nothing, these future generations will suffer. And I'm talking about not only future generations of people in school now, and that's why there is an outcry from the public. I invite my colleagues to watch this. I'm sure they got tweets and emails about this.
Future generations are saying, they're saying protect the sharks, protect them because keep them for the next generations. And if we're not doing anything now, and we know the reason why we're bringing forward or bringing in shark fins, it's simply for a question of prestige. I think at one point we have to react. we know that the laws in place, the regulations in place are not doing the job right now. So this is why we have to change, we have to move forward. There's a tremendous amount of support from the community, from scuba divers, from even from the Chinese community also. And I'll very quickly just thank Véronica Kwan de la Maison Camfung de Brossard dans ma circonscription.
From the Quan Fung House in Brassard, in my riding, who is aware of the problem. She supports this bill. Also the International Humane Society in Canada, which has worked a great deal for this. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again I want to thank the Honourable Member for New Westminster Coquitlam for bringing this important issue to the attention of this House. And I think I can safely say that every member of this House, as I do, thinks that the practice of shark finning is an awful thing. It involves the removal of the shark's fin while it's still alive and discarding the rest of the animal into the sea to die of suffocation or predation. And we all agree that this is deplorable. Where we might disagree is on how to deal with the issue of shark finning. And I'm not yet convinced that Bill C-380 is the way. To remind honourable members, the bill proposes to amend two federal acts, the Fish Inspection Act to prohibit the importation of shark fins, and the Fisheries Act to prohibit the practice of shark finning in Canada. As my colleague, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, has spoken to the Fish Inspection Act, I will focus primarily on the changes proposed to the Fisheries Act. C-380 calls for amendments to the Fisheries Act to ban the practice of shark finning. Mr. Speaker, this bill attempts to fix something that isn't broken. Shark finning is banned in Canada and has been for almost 2 decades. The practice of finning has been banned in Canada since 1994, in fact, through license conditions under the Fishery General Regulations. That ban applies to Canadian fisheries waters as well as Canadian licensed vessels fishing outside of our territorial waters. Shark fishing in Canada is governed by sustainable management plans that include strong enforcement regimes to ensure that finning does not occur in Canadian fisheries. And these apply to all shark fisheries in Canadian waters. And indeed, only a few shark species are harvested in Canada, including spiny dogfish, porbeagle shark, short-fin mako shark, and blue shark. And these harvests are carefully managed based on the best scientific advice, and they allow Fisheries and Oceans Canada to monitor shark populations in order to ensure their conservation. The shark fishery in Canada is highly regulated with rigorous dockside monitoring. In fact, Canada maintains the first and only shark fishery in the world to be certified as sustainable by the Marine Stewardship Council. As mentioned, Mr. Speaker, in 1994, due to rising concerns over the practice, the Canadian government prohibited shark finning. The Minister of Fisheries and Oceans was given the ability to do this under Section 7 of the Fisheries Act, which sets out the Minister's authority to issue leases and licenses for fisheries or fishing. Section 22 of the regulations provides the Minister with a specific authority to set out targeted license conditions for the proper management and control of fisheries and the conservation and protection of fish. These provisions provide the Minister with the authority to impose, as a license condition, measures to eliminate shark finning. So the regulations already allow the Minister to impose, as a license condition, measures to eliminate shark finning, which has been done. Today, all license holders for Canadian shark fisheries and for fisheries where sharks are landed as bycatch are subject to license conditions that prohibit them from engaging in shark finning. So why try and reinvent the wheel with this bill? The ban is enforced through a number of different internationally accepted methods across Canada. One approach requires that the number of fins corresponds with the number of shark carcasses landed by shark fishing vessels. Under a second and more common approach, the number of fins on shark fishing vessels cannot exceed 5% of the overall weight of carcasses on board when it lands. Both methods are intended to ensure that sharks are not being caught solely for their fins. All licensed shark fishing vessels in Canada are subject to 100% monitoring to ensure that this ratio is respected. And any violation of a license condition is an offense under the Fisheries Act. Penalties for those found to be in contravention of their conditions of license range from warnings to prosecution to requests for court-imposed license suspensions and quota penalties to loss of the privilege of renewal of the license. Now, these measures were put in place to ensure that Canada's shark fishery conforms to sustainable harvesting practices. It's a very practical approach, Mr. Speaker, and it has worked well. There's been only one minor breach in recent years. But otherwise, shark finning has not been an issue in Canadian fisheries. I would also add, Mr. Speaker, that Canada's approach is an internationally accepted standard within regional fisheries management organizations. So while this bill is flawed, there are other ways to address this issue. For example, the proposed amendments to the Coastal Fisheries Protection Act provide new tools for Canadian officials to seize shipments of fish products which have been caught illegally, such as shark fins. The proposed revisions to the Coastal Fisheries Protection Act, currently being reviewed by the Senate as Bill S-13, will provide the legislative authority for Canada to prevent the import of fish products from illegal sources. Additionally, Canada has worked with other countries to put an end to this practice, and the Government of Canada will continue to work with our international partners to ensure sustainable management of sharks, including the prohibition of the practice of finning. Globally, Canada promotes the sustainable management and conservation of sharks through international organizations, including the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and regional fisheries management bodies, such as the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas. There are also a number of international agreements which Canada is a party to, which govern the conservation, management, and trade of certain at-risk shark species. For instance, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, usually called CITES, protects the great white basking and whale sharks. Imports of any of these shark species or any of their parts into Canada is only permissible if accompanied by an export permit from the country of origin, which certifies that the imported shark or products derived from it were caught in a scientifically proven sustainable fishery. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, proposals have been submitted to have 3 more added to the Convention's 16th Conference of Parties in March. So to summarize, Mr. Speaker, Canada has taken action against the deplorable practice of illegal shark finning. This practice has been banned in Canada since 1994. Canada believes that working through regional fisheries management organizations to ensure strong management and enforcement practices globally is the most effective way to prevent unsustainable shark fishing practices such as finning. A complete trade ban penalizes responsible, legitimate fishing practices without addressing overfishing practices or improving global fisheries management. And we will continue to support responsible, legal shark harvesters and crack down on those who break the rules. Given the above, Mr. Speaker, the government can't support Private Member's Bill C-380. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate, there remain 5 minutes for the honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to participate for a short period of time on this important debate. Let me, first of all, add my words of congratulations to the member from New Westminster Coquitlam for bringing in a Bill C-380. What this member has done is he's recognized that there is a problem that exists in this country. In fact, there's a problem that exists globally with respect to this issue, the trade, the illegal trade in shark fins. And he said, I'm going to do something about it. And he's been talking with Canadians, been talking to municipalities, been talking to members of this House. And he's been talking to school children, and people support what it is that he's talking about. We heard members in this House on all sides talk about the fact that they too agree that the international trade and in shark fins, the illegal trade in shark fins is deplorable. The practice of shark finning is deplorable. We've heard everyone agree to that. But the only one that's come forward with an actual plan to stop the problem is a member from New Westminster, Coquitlam. The parliamentary secretary for Fisheries and Oceans had all kinds of excuses as to why they're not going to support our attempt to ban this illegal trade in shark fins, Mr. Speaker. And let me just highlight one point he made, and that is the work that the government is doing in international cooperation with other groups and organizations, be they regional or otherwise. And let me give one example. The ICAT, Mr. Speaker, which is the International Committee for the Conservation of Atlantic Tuna, has held meetings recently to deal with issues of tuna conservation, but also the subsequent and the tangential impact of that fishery and the impact it's had on the porbeagle shark. In 2008, a joint ICAT-ICES assessment for the Northeast Atlantic population of porbeagle gave the following advice, and I quote, "Given the state of the stock, no targeted fishing for porbeagle should be permitted and bycatch should be limited and landings of porbeagle should not be allowed." Well, Mr. Speaker, the EU and that committee then went on to set some limits on the total allowable catches, and this year, in 2012, in ICAT meetings in Morocco, the only country that objected to a ban in the fishing of the porbeagle shark, which is facing extinction, was Canada. Now, this is one shark that's not included as right now on the list because of the work that Canada has been doing. So to suggest that we can solve the problem of shark finning and the illegal trade in shark fins across the world and deal with the impact of conservation on sharks and the devastation on the ecosystem, our marine ecosystem, Mr. Speaker, through existing agreements, through existing relationships we have around the world, is just simply fanciful. It's just simply fanciful. So what my colleague has done with the support of his colleagues in this caucus, and I believe I heard some support from the Liberal caucus, was that we should bring this bill forward, pass it out of second reading, move it to committee, and have a good discussion. If we agree, Mr. Speaker, and we've heard everyone say they do, and Canadians by the thousands are reporting that they want this practice stopped, if we agree with that, then let's move this bill, which is the first attempt in this Parliament to begin to deal with the problem. Let's move that bill from here into committee, and let's deal with it once and for all. Let's make a commitment, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Canadians concerned, on behalf of our marine ecosystem, on behalf of those that recognize the fact that we need to step up and stop the illegal trade in shark fins. We need to stop this practice. Then let's actually do something about it, Mr. Speaker. And I understand that my time is come to a close. I just want to urge all members of this House to vote in support of Bill 380, and let's do something about this deplorable practice of shark finning. Thank you.
The time provided for the consideration of private members' business has now expired, and the orders dropped to the bottom of the order precedence on the order paper. The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour will have 4 minutes remaining when this matter returns before the House. Orders of the day.